don't accept that faith is the enemy to science. I don't accept that faith is the enemy to reason. I think that faith respects reason, but it transcends it. My religious formation, both in school and at home and in the parish, I laid a foundation for my priestly vocation that came afterwards. For the believer to say, I believe in God, and for the atheist to say, I believe there is no God. So the atheist has to believe as well, because he or she does not have proof. So my name is Billy Swan. I am a priest of the Diocese of Ferns here in County Wexford. I am the administrator here in Wexford Parish. I am come originally from the parish of Glynn in County Wexford. It's a small little village between Enniscorthy and Wexford Town on the River Slaney. I grew up in a happy home. I was blessed to have a happy childhood. I look back at that time with great gratitude and blessing in my life. I went from national school into secondary school in St. Peter's College in Wexford. I started there in 1982 and I did the Leaving Cert in 1987. After I did the Leaving Cert in 1987, I was granted a place in University College Dublin to study science. I was always interested in science, I still am. I graduated from University College in Dublin in 1991 with a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. So chemistry was the area of science that I was most interested in and found most fascinating, but I enjoyed and was interested in all of the different disciplines of science, from biology to physics to astronomy to microbiology to pharmacology. The way the world works and the observance of the handiwork of the Creator, I wouldn't have described it at the time, but in the light of what I know now and in the light of my faith, that is exactly what I believe science is. It is an observation with a contemplative heart of God's handiwork in creation. After I graduated from college in 1991 on my 22nd birthday, I was blessed to receive an offer of employment in Dublin in Swords with a pharmaceutical company there. It was a big employer at the time, probably still is. It was a company that made different kinds of pharmaceuticals, so I was involved in the research and development department there. I worked there for 2 years. I loved the work. I made many friends, and it was a time of learning and growth in my life. It was also perhaps a time of feeling a little bit unsettled, because as you were working, life was opening up before you like a ship on an open sea. That time of my life, it was a period of feeling a little bit unsettled. I wasn't sure of what the future held. There was part of me could not see myself settling down in Dublin, and it raised deeper questions of what God was calling me to do. I discerned a vocation to priesthood around that time. I felt attracted to it. I was scared on one hand. Eventually, we're blessed with good people to talk to. And the more I talked about it and the more they listened, the more it became a possibility that this could be what God wanted. Then eventually I said yes, I had to give this way of life a try. And I entered seminary on the 10th of September 1993, 30 years ago this year. And I was in St. Peter's College in Wexford, our own diocesan seminary. And I studied there for 4 years. Then the last year as a deacon, I spent in a parish in Camden Town in London, which was a big baptism of fire. But it was a year that was difficult and challenging, but yet one in which I felt I really grew. I was ordained then on the 7th of June 1998, almost 25 years ago. I was sent by my bishop to New Ross, to the parish there where I worked for 4 years. I was then sent for further studies in Rome to the Pontifical Gregorian University. After 5 years there, I was appointed on the staff as Director of Seminary Formation. That time concluded in 2012. I came back and I was appointed by my bishop at the time to the cathedral in Enniscorthy, where I spent 8.5 very happy years. And then in February 2021, I moved here and was appointed as administrator to Wexford Town. So that's my journey. I've been here for the last 2.5 years. Yeah, and this year is a significant milestone. Like I said, I celebrate 25 years of priestly ministry this June. One of the great memories that I had and I have of growing up is that I grew up in a world and at a time when God was always mentioned and present. It was a different time in Ireland, but Sunday Mass was a non-negotiable at the time. Almost everybody went. It took as much courage not to go back then as it takes courage to go now for young people. But it was very much the gathering place of the local community, and not just a religious gathering, but also a social gathering at the time. You had people lingering after Mass, I remember, on Sunday mornings to chat and to catch up, and relatives and children playing all around the village there. There were 2 local shops and both of them were full with people coming in and buying stuff. It was a happy time. Another big moment for me when I began to serve Mass as an altar server. You felt that you were close to the action. There was something enchanting about the bells and smells and the pageantry of it all, the liturgy, the drama, the gospels, the stories that you heard week in, week out, that you began to become familiar with as you got older. And then the religious instruction that we got in school was also very important as well, especially in the lead up to your first Holy Communion and confirmation. There was something, I have to say, that moved me and that fascinated me with the story of Jesus of Nazareth. I was always fascinated by his courage, by his innocence, by his mercy, and by his moral courage. I thought he was a real hero in the face of opposition and of cruelty and of violence, and how he held his integrity together when he came under intense pressure. So that was always a fascinating dimension of my religious instruction, catechesis growing up, that complemented what was going on at the home. Again, we were a family that went to Mass every Sunday. Prayer was part of the home. That was deeply influential as well. You were taught to say your prayers in the morning and to conclude each day with a prayer of thanksgiving as well, and also prayer of forgiveness. So prayer were the 2 ends of a bookshelf that bookended each day, and you got into that rhythm of prayer every day, and that habit, if you like, certainly has stayed with me right up to this day. So my religious formation, both in school and at home and in the parish, laid a foundation for my priestly vocation that came afterwards. I think that many people are enthralled and maybe mystified about what a priest does every day. Many people think that his responsibilities end when he comes off the altar and finishes celebrating Mass. And maybe I had that false impression too, but sometimes I think there's not enough hours in the day for all that could be done. But I try to do my best, like most priests do, and to do an honest day's work. I remember my former bishop, before he ordained me, he said, try to fill your day with work, with leisure, with prayer, and with study. And once you manage to do all 4 in a balanced way, then you will be happy as a priest. The day begins early, about 7 o'clock, after morning ablutions and getting ready. I try to do morning prayer and the office of readings and look at the readings for that given day. Mass is normally at 8 or 10 or 5:45 in the evening. Here in Wexford, we have 3 per day. And I suppose morning times are spent in schools and also doing some administration work at the office desk, setting yourself during the day for appointments and catching up with people and answering letters and sending off emails and so forth. Yeah, so the visits to the school then are an important part of morning ministry, I would say. I'm chaplain of 3 schools, part-time obviously. Our Lady of Fatima Special School here in Wexford, which I love being involved in. CBS Primary School here in Wexford, which again I love the place and the people and the staff and the students. And then another place that is very dear to me is St. Peter's College, Wexford. It's my alma mater. This is my 3rd role that I've occupied in St. Peter's. I was there as a lay student from 82 to 87 as a student, did my leaving cert in 87. I was in the seminary from 93, ordained there in 98. And now in my current role since February 2021, I'm part-time chaplain to the lay side, or to the secondary school. Afternoons and other times you're on hospital duty. At night time and during the day, there are meetings with parish groups, finance council, pastoral council here in the parish of Wexford. Wexford is a town in which many friends and people that I know come and go, so many time I meet them downtown for a coffee or whatever. And there's sometimes meetings in the evenings as well. I try to keep up the discipline of writing. I love to write. I love to formulate ideas, and I've written a few books that I'm proud of over the 25 years of my priesthood. And I enjoy that. I find it life-giving, and I find it fertilizes your ministry of preaching as well and teaching. Even in places like senior and junior infants, you've got to understand, do you really understand what you believe in a way that you can condense it and simplify it and communicate it to very young people. I edit a website that is a tool of communication and evangelization that belongs to the Diocese of Ferns, called the Hook of Faith. It is a response to evangelize through using new and old media, and to evangelize on the digital continent, as Pope Francis, Pope Benedict and John Paul II before him have encouraged us to do. So that takes me into the field of media, YouTube, of writing articles, sharing poetry, connecting to another man and his work that has inspired me down over the years, Bishop Robert Barron, who's the Bishop of Winona, Rochester in the United States. He's the founder of Word on Fire Catholic Ministries, and he was one of the first pioneers back in the noughties to establish the ministry of digital media. So in 2017, Bishop Robert Barron invited me to become part of his team of blog writers on the Word on Fire website, wordonfire.org. And that took me into a focused ministry of writing. I contributed to the Word on Fire website with an article about roughly once a month. For me, it is a ministry that brings out new meaning to the command of Christ to go and teach all nations. When I started working for Word on Fire first and writing for them, I would see an article that I wrote and I would see it posted on Facebook. I would see these likes coming in from faraway places like Australia, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Africa, South America, all over the world. I would get emails from people from all of these places. It was allowing me to do exactly what Christ asked us to do, to go and evangelize and teach all nations. One of the greatest influences of my life outside of my parents was St. John Paul II. And I really got to know him and became enthralled with his message when he came to Ireland in 1979. He came on the anniversary of the apparitions of Knock. I was just captivated by his presence, by his smile, by his communication, by his homilies, etc. What I would say to young people is that become familiar with the debate that has taken place over many, many centuries and has been contributed to by some of the finest minds in the history of the world and in the church. Not just theologians, but also scientists who happen to be believers as well. So you have the wonderful mind of people like Saint Augustine, the wonderful inquiring mind of people like St. Thomas Aquinas and his proofs of the existence of God. You have people like St. John Paul II, Catherine of Siena, St. Teresa of Avila, Edith Stein, all of these great thinkers. These were very, very intelligent people. But you also have people like George Lemaitre. He was a Catholic Belgian priest who came up with the hypothesis of the Big Bang Theory that was initially rejected by people like Einstein, but was later subscribed to by people like Einstein. And that basically confirmed the truth that the universe had a beginning about 13.8 billion years ago, an extraordinary amount of time, but that the universe had a beginning. And that gave new momentum to the possibility of faith in a creator God. Because if you look at it logically and reasonably, if you make the argument that everything that began to exist has a creator, creation began to exist, so therefore creation has a creator, it has a cause, something brought it into being, something that was not part of the creation itself, something that was contingent on something else, something that was transcendent beyond space and time and the material world. And if you look at the question of God that way, you begin to see how the idea of a God who is transcendent, who is beyond space and time, and yet who is radically present to all of his creation, becomes more plausible and becomes more credible. I don't accept that faith is the enemy to science. I don't accept that faith is the enemy to reason. I think that faith respects reason, but it transcends it. And I think that this is written into the very structure of the universe itself, because every single answer to a question is met by another question. We're not like this, expanding minds that go out to the edges, and one day we're going to go to the edge and answer all the questions that could possibly be asked. I think that we grapple with new questions all of the time, and I think that the infinite dimensions of the universe bear witness to the existence of an infinite creator God. Well, this year I'm 25 years ordained a priest, and it is a time to look back with gratitude and with reflection on the ministry of priests and our relationship with the people of God. So, working day to day with people, I find a great privilege and a joy. There's never a day passes by where there's not an opportunity to encourage someone, to share with them new hope, share with them our faith in the Lord Jesus and his promises and his power that flow through his word and through the sacraments and through the presence of each and every one of us.
My life is a miracle. Every child has a story of God's love to share. Shalom world, tune into God's love story.